Hi guys, it's Teacher Kim, and I miss you guys. And I thought it would be fun to do a little science today. So I thought we would talk about yeast and what it does. This week at school we would have been reading The Little Red Hen, and we would have been making bread. And yeast is an important part of bread, so I thought we would make some yeast, mix some yeast up, and see what happens to it. So I've got 2 tablespoons of yeast here, and 1, 2, 3 tablespoons of sugar, and I'm just going to mix them together. This is just half a cup of warm water, and we're going to see what happens when you mix up yeast and sugar in water. So some of you might be wondering what yeast is. Yeast is a single cell fungus, kind of like mushrooms. Mushrooms are another fungus. There's actually lots of different funguses that live in our world, and yeast has been used since ancient times in making bread. So they actually have, in the pyramids, they have things that they think the Egyptians used to make yeast breads and stones to grind wheat, just like the Little Red Hen did, which I think is kind of cool. So what happens with fungus is that, or with the yeast, which is our fungus, is that as it eats the sugar, it grows. It makes carbon dioxide, and that makes it grow. So if we watch here for just a few minutes, we'll see what happens to this yeast as it grows with the sugar, and just kind of see what happens. So I don't know if you can come in closer, Emma, so that they can kind of see. We've got some bubbles on the top here, and it looks like we might be starting to move just a little, but it takes a few minutes for anything to really happen. But we're just going to kind of watch and see. So there are lots of different ways that you can make yeast. They don't just have to be from this, but you can actually make sourdough starts that will make a gas reaction just like this does, and you can actually make them from potato water as well, but you have to let them sit on the counter, and they'll make, then you can use those to raise your breads and your cookies and those kinds of things as well. So I don't know if you can see, but it does look like our yeast is starting to grow a little bit, and we're just going to give it a few more minutes. See, there's a few more little air bubbles happening on the top, so maybe we'll just give it a little pause for a second and come back to it. Okay, and we're back to check on our yeast again. If you can look here, when we started, we had a half a cup of warm water, so our mark was right there. And when we added in our yeast and our sugar, it went to about right here in our measuring cup. And now you can see that our yeast has grown all the way up to the letters. I want you to look in at the top, Emma, and see just how bubbly and how much that yeast has grown. So that's what yeast does when you put it together with water and sugar. It eats the sugar and it creates carbon dioxide and makes air bubbles. And when you put this into your flour, it makes air bubbles in your flour and makes your bread rise.
It looks like the surface of the moon.
Emma thinks it looks like the surface of the moon. What do you guys think? Come back up here. We're going to go ahead and put this in our bread, and in just a few minutes I'm going to show you guys how to make some yummy homemade bread with your moms. Bye guys!